think before the tournament, they definitely had the advantage. I think there were a lot of people's favourites for this tournament. I felt like based upon the Olympics and based upon their players and how well drilled they are, I think the fact they've got like a lot of players that a lot of the play with each other in the WSL, Magdalena Eriksson, Lindahl. There's a lot of players. Asolani played for Manchester City. So, and then Blackstenius is now obviously at Arsenal. So there's a lot of players that the girls will know a lot about. So it's one of those things where England will have to play really, really well. I was more worried and nervous against Spain than I was for this game. But maybe it's because I don't think I'm underestimating Sweden, but I think Spain were going to be our toughest test. And obviously we knew we could avoid Germany, as in England, before we got to the finals. So it was either Germany or France. It was going to be in the semi-finals based upon how the brackets went, and we were going to avoid them because after watching Germany the other day, they look very, very strong. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be one of those things where the Swedish players are going to want to cause an upset. Why wouldn't you? If I was playing for Sweden, especially going up against a lot of my teammates that I know or former teammates, I definitely want to cause an upset. I think the reason why England probably seem like they're overly confident, I don't think it's the players. I think it's the country as a whole. I think being here, feeling everything going on. I think if this was in another country, I said the other day, I felt like if the game was in Spain, I don't think we'd have won that game. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but the fans and everything is just really, it's become more of an excitement. I think at the beginning of the tournament, I think there was a lot of pressure on the players against Austria. I think that's why we got rattled. We looked nervous. But I think after that game, it seems like we've grown into the tournament. And I think England have played their way into being favourites. But I feel like in the men's game, and I've said this many times before, if a team goes into a tournament as the favourites, like a Spain, a Sweden or a Germany, just because a team starts to play well doesn't mean they become the favourites. Whereas I actually think England have. In people's eyes, they become the favourites. And I'm always mindful because they're ranked 8th in the world. Now, I know this isn't a World Cup, but there's teams in this tournament that are ranked higher than them. So I think people have to be mindful of that. They just have to be mindful also of the fact that England are playing some of the best football they've played with a new manager, Serena Wiegman. And I say new manager, but she's not been there 5 minutes, but it's her first tournament with the team. And the impact she's had on the team in such a short space of time is absolutely unbelievable. I can see it and I genuinely feel it. The way she is, I wish she was there when I was there. The way she is, from what I've heard, the way she manages the players, the way she communicates, that's all you can ask for from a player's perspective is open and honest conversations and communication. You might not like it. I think there's a few players. I mean, the list goes on, but I think the way I said about Asolani in the attack, the way she attacks for this team, I think it depends on who plays. I think Rolf, obviously, when she plays for club, she's been playing fullback, which is quite strange, but she's a danger going forward as well. Blackstenius is a danger, obviously being at Arsenal now. She's done quite well coming off the bench for them. So I think there's not necessarily a player like Ada Hegerberg where you're going to have to be like, oh my God, I have to, every movement I make, I'm going to have to be watching them. But I think Asolani in that number 10 role for Sweden, I think she comes alive when she plays for Sweden in that position. So I think it's going to be, and if Caroline Sager plays, whether she plays or not, she's somebody that is experienced in the team in that defensive midfield role. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's one specific player, but I think the Swedish team on a whole, with Eriksson, with Asolani, Blackstenius, Caroline Sager, Rolfo, Lindahl, like there's so many leaders in that team. And I think that's what I love about Sweden is that there's no glitz and glamour. They get the job done. And you talk about them going underneath the radar. I agree with you. I think people that watch the women's game will know how good Sweden are. But people that don't watch it and are just watching it now will probably not even think they have a chance because they don't know the players. They don't know the way they play. But this is going to be a difficult game for England. And I think England know that. I don't think England and the players are underestimating and the staff. They're not underestimating them at all. I think a lot of people, especially media in England, that are a bit sceptical of the women's team for some reason, have questioned, against Norway. They haven't had to do anything. They won 8-0, but realistically, that was such a freak result that never really happens. And when it does happen, especially against a top nation like Norway, and people have said they've not been tested against Northern Ireland, it was a foregone conclusion. Against Austria, it was a foregone conclusion they were going to win. But all you can do is beat the team in front of you. So I think that they showed resilience. They showed that they can go behind and come back in the way they did against Spain, because there was times in that game against Spain where we all looked at each other in commentary and just thought, this game's getting away from England, like getting away from us. You could feel it in and around the 70th, 75th minute. And that's when I think the subs really made a difference. Because when you come into a game, England look to make substitutions in around the 60th minute. They always have done, always will do. But it takes a little bit to get into a game. You need a couple, it doesn't even take 10 minutes. And I think sometimes people expect subs to come into the game and be fresh and ready to go, which they are, but you have to get up to game speed of what's going on. So I think that's when the subs really made a difference. And Serena Wiegman, I was questioning her, you know, taking off Beth Mead and taking off Frank Kirby in that situation, but it worked. So England have to be patient, make the most of opportunities, keep using that right side because it's working. Nobody can seem to nullify that side apart from, you know, Cameron in the game for Spain. She did an unbelievable, Carmona, sorry, in the back line. Unbelievable on Lucy Bronze in the first half, on Beth Mead. And that is what Sweden are going to have to do as well, because they're going to be mindful of the right-hand side. I think so. I think with the England-Sweden game is more likely for me to have more goals in it. I think the Germany-France game, Germany are a little bit more counter-attacking than France, but then France break with unbelievable purpose when they're passing the ball. They seem to all have a really good flow. So it'll be interesting to see their game plan, because I would say Sweden will probably sit back for a little bit to see what England are going to do. And I think England can use that in their advantage. So I think if England can get an early goal, similar to how they did against Austria in the first game, I think England can win that game pretty comfortably. But it depends on how the first half goes, and it depends on how Sweden come out and if they rise to the occasion. Because I have no doubt that England will rise to the occasion, because they did against Spain and they have done during this whole tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how Sweden manage their emotions and their nerves. I think the Germany-France game will be tighter than the England-Sweden game. But I could be wrong, because I said that England-Norway would be tight and it was 8-0. But everybody said the same thing. I'm going to go with an England win. I think we've gone out of semi-finals too many times in recent tournaments. And I think that, you know, at this point, it's now. You're not going to get a bigger opportunity to play at Wembley in front of your home fans, to play in England. The country's going absolutely crazy. You know, they've just set up 2 more fan parks in Trafalgar Square. Everybody's getting on board, and it's just really great to see, because from a player's perspective, when I played in tournaments, you don't really know what's going on back home. So I expect England to win that, but not easily. Not easily. I think the Germany-France game, I'm going to go over Germany win. I think France have got better technically gifted players when it comes to, you know, possessing the ball and directness. But I think Germany just are unbelievable in their attack and the strength. So I'm going to go over Germany-England final. That's my prediction. Hopefully it'll be better than when I played there for England a few years ago. It wasn't even that long ago. We got beat 3-0. But thankfully we've overcome that hurdle lately, because we never used to be able to beat Germany. It wasn't until 2015 when we won the bronze medal that we actually overcome that. You know, because psychologically, when you lose to teams all the time, it can then start to become, you know, a bit draining and daunting. Whereas now I think people fear England. I really do.